Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You join me in a very odd place, the start screen. Normally I don't start on the start screen, but this time it's kind of important. For anyone who's been keeping a track, um, KSP is actually out. So this has caused a few problems with my game, which I will discuss. So if I go here and I go to resume, you'll notice that I have my Pure Science save. You'll also notice the Pure Science 2. The Pure Science 2 we'll get to in a minute. So this is my original game. And when I load it up, you will notice that if I go to the Space Center, there in all of its magnificent glory is my space station. Right? Yes, it's back from the last time that I did a recording. Um, which is awesome. The problem is, because this is an old save, it has made a few changes. So, if I go back to the Space Center, I'll show you the project that I've been working on that I was trying to get working, trying to get to function when the game came out, and why now it won't function. Right? Well, why it won't function now. So, there it is. Yeah. Which I gotta say, I do love the fact that it actually adds an image of the vehicle that you built. That's kind of cool. But you'll notice it says contains locked or invalid parts. Right? And that's because this thing is jam-packed with a whole bunch of Rapier engines. Now, before, in the old save, I actually had these unlocked. I mean, I went through the whole skill tree with the specific intentional purpose of getting getting these things unlocked. My problem was, once I had the payload on board, this thing really, it could make it into space. But strangely, at about 80,000 meters, you had to kick the Saber engines into rocket mode, get it up to about 9,000 meters, and then kick them back into jet mode, because for some reason it just would not get past the it just wouldn't get past 80,000 meters, and I don't know why. I'm sure it's something obvious to anybody who's a long-term KSP player. Will be looking at this going, oh, well, there's your problem right there. But for me, I am as much into physics and scientific stuff as is possible for me to be in without being 100% involved in it. I do love all the sciencey stuff. I do love all the space stuff, and planes are a huge, huge love and passion of mine. Um, so it does annoy me that I couldn't get this thing to work, right? But now this thing will almost never fly. At the very least, it won't fly for quite some time, because if we go back here, when they launched the game, they made changes to the skill tree again, which was nice of them. I appreciate it. But of course, that meant that this right here, where you see the nice Saber engine, that's actually not there. It's there. So it's one more skill point up from where I was at already, which is actually really kind of annoying. Because it's like, I had it. I mean, I was right there, and you guys took it from me. So I've been debating, when this came out, I was actually debating for a while what I wanted to do. Because the problem I have is now basically this save is useless, because most of my stuff doesn't work anymore. I mean, I could go through the whole process, but I want to show you another problem that I have, which is if I go into here, you will notice nowhere in this list do you see Valentina, right? Valentina is one of the newest Kerbals added, right, along with a few other female Kerbals, which I have to say, kudos on whoever did the artwork for the Kerbals themselves, because it fits so perfectly with everything else, because the females have a slightly more rounder head than the males do. So you'll notice that Jeb, Bill, Bob, and all the others have a more, like, their heads are kind of squared with rounded edges, whereas the females actually have a oval shaped head, which is really cool, and it works so well. So whoever came up with that idea, excellent job, right? But as you notice, they're not here, and that's because this is an old save and it's not registering them as being there. And well, anyone who's been on my channel knows that I think that women should have every opportunity to be able to do anything a man can do. So that is why, if we exit to the main menu and we go back, you'll notice the other save, Pure Science 2. Pure Science 2, I started with the intention of getting it to the original Pure Science point, only this time with all the extra Kerbals, so Valentina and all the rest. But then I got to thinking to myself, do I actually want to go through the whole process, or would I much rather just record from here? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start over. Now, I do have a few things in the skill tree already, but it's really just the first two tiers, right? So, I mean, I've got some stuff collected, but I haven't gotten into the more advanced stuff yet. So, most likely what's going to end up happening is I'm going to end up re-recording pretty much the entire KSP series from this point on, is most likely what's going to happen, right? This is a fantastic game, and it allows me to kind of delve a little bit deeper into my more mad scientific side than I would normally do otherwise. And I love delving into the mad scientific side. So, I mean, I do need to get more back into the sciencey stuff. I do have a few theories that have been kicking around inside of my head that I need to test, to run some tests and do some experiments and stuff like that. But of course, you know, being an average Joe means I don't have the necessary funding to do large-scale testing, but a thesis paper in an article or in a news, scientific news journal is really all it takes to get things kicked off. So, unfortunately, when it comes to writing fiction, I'm good. When it comes to writing factual documentation, well, you're better off looking somewhere else. So, that is basically the sum of what is going to be going on with this series. Which means, yeah, got it, thanks. Which means I'm going to have to put another station into orbit and rebuild everything. But I should be able to, if I go here, yeah, dang. I was hoping it'd have some of the old stuff saved, but of course it doesn't. Well, I mean, I could probably transfer my vehicles and stuff over to this save and work from there, but tell you what, man, who was ever driving that thing is, yeah. But, yeah, so most likely I will be starting the series over from this point because it's just going to be a little bit easier on me not having to try and get everything caught up and all that. Mostly this video is just to reassure you guys, no, the KSP series is not dead. It was just because I was trying so desperately to get that thing into orbit, and I didn't want to, I didn't want like 7 or 8 videos of failed attempts and all that of me trying to get that thing up into orbit. So also I noticed that, because usually what'll happen is while I'm playing KSP, I'll be like, I won't do any recording audio wise. I'll do it all in post. And when I'm watching a video while I'm playing KSP, which is what I normally do. Sorry if you heard that fan kick on. Normally I'll be watching a video while I'm playing KSP, and I've realized that even with the mic off, it's still recording the audio from the videos. So I have to figure out how to get rid of the secondary audio from those videos. So that's basically the sum of what's going to be happening with the series. Is I am pretty much just going to kind of continue onward from this point. I will be turning down the heat damage for a few good reasons. A, where I do love the realism of the game, I'm in this for the fun, right? Yes, explosions are cool, but when I'm actually trying to achieve something, having my stuff randomly blow up on me because it was coming in way too fast into the atmosphere, well, that's kind of just annoying, more so than anything else. But having said that, I might consider using the heat shields for some stuff, because it does make things a little bit more interesting, you know, because here you have, you know, a massive risk to all of this stuff because you don't have a heat shield on. So that's kind of cool. I haven't quite decided yet. I'm going to go through the list of stuff. My primary reasoning behind all of this is because if you'll notice, where is the decoupler at? There you are. When I put the decoupler on here, notice how it puts that little guard up around it? That is hideous. Okay, I mean, I'm not a fashion person. Few gamers are, but still, you know, ugh. I mean, that, it just, wow, no. And I can tell you from an aerodynamic standpoint, right, that lip right there is going to cause a ridiculous amount of drag, right? It may not look big, but it doesn't need to look big, because if you notice, it actually does stick out from the side there. So it is going to cause massive amounts of drag. So if this was legit, like seriously legit, that having that on there is going to cause a huge problem for your rocket in flight. Basically, it's going to slow it down, meaning you're going to need more power and more fuel in order to get this thing up. So yeah, I do know enough about, because like I said, planes are a huge fascination of mine. But unlike most people, I'm not all big into the newest, greatest, latest thing. I like the more unique stuff. I do like the F-14. It's a great plane. I like the concept and the idea behind it, but it's not my favorite. My favorite is the F-15. Famed for, in its day, being able to outrun the missiles that were being shot at it. So, you know, I mean, that's just, I mean, how cool is that? You know, you're like, missile lock. Don't worry about it. Kick on the afterburners and just lose the missile. Awesome. Also, the SR-71 Blackbird. Ooh, I love the Blackbird. Because in order to fly it, you actually had to wear a spacesuit. Because if you jettisoned out, you would be in space. I mean, how awesome is that? That is just fantastic. And then, of course, topping out my list of top 3 planes, the A-10 Warthog, which is by far and away my favorite of all the planes. It is slow, it is not the prettiest looking thing, but you don't earn the name Tank Killer for nothing. If you get a chance, look up some videos on the Warthog doing what it does best. Good God. It is a thing of beauty when it is in action. Oh. So yeah, I mean, planes are a huge love of mine, and rockets are not far behind. My favorite, naturally of course, being the Saturn V. Why the Saturn V? Because it's a Saturn V rocket. It is the most powerful rocket ever launched. I mean, you don't beat that. I mean, that is just fantastic. Oh man. Yeah. Saturn V, people. Seriously. I mean, the good old days of, you know... Nah. Yeah, because I don't have the fuel lines yet. So we'll add another 2 and call it... Damn it. Call it good. So, yeah, I said, I mean, I love rockets. I love rocketry. I love... Man, all of this stuff. Also, while I'm on the subject of rockets and all that, and things that have been changed, firstly, the Flea, which is possibly the most useless engine ever added to the game, primarily because all you really have to do is, like, take a few bits of science out to the launch pad, not even with a rocket engine attached to it, collect some science, right? So, nah. Oh, no wait, wrong one. Right, so all you gotta do, right, is collect some science from the launch pad. So like the goo container and all that come here, right? So this is what you start off with. You start off with the Flea, you get the goo container, you get the parachute, you get all this stuff, right? Now, if you take the goo container out to the launch pad, you get a EVA report and all that, you can come here and instantaneously get the hammer. So you literally don't need the Flea for anything, because this is only like 5 or 10 science, and you can collect that easily from the launch pad in like no time at all. So having this engine is not very useful, because if you use it and you really don't need to use it, I mean, unless you're playing career mode, which I'm playing in the scientific mode, so the currency is currently disabled and all my buildings are pre-upgraded, because yes, in reality you would have to do stuff and build stuff and, you know, move up in order to continue onward, but there's a line between reality and fiction that I really can't stand when people cross, and that is video games, for me anyway. I play video games for fun, not for realism. And where this game offers possibly the most realistic experience of actually trying to get into space, and I'm not trying to just blow stuff up, I'm legitimately trying to get out into space and do stuff in space. By making it harder for me to do that, it bores me, you know? And that is a bit of a failing on my part. I will admit that, because I do get bored with stuff fairly easily, and stuff falls to the wayside because of it. But having something like this where I have access to the facility to be able to launch a Saturn V size rocket, even though I don't have the parts to do it, that's interesting to me. That's exciting to me, because it's like, okay, I have something to work towards, and it's not a seemingly impossible goal, you know? So, but, you know, that's my take on things, is sometimes it's a good thing to be able to work your way up to those points, and what's the word I'm looking for? It's a good thing to work your way up to that and have the joys of making those small steps, but the work has to balance out the steps. So, I mean, you can't just have... I mean, if you have mountains and mountains of work on top of you, you don't have the same feeling of accomplishment when you've actually succeeded in doing something, because you're so beaten and so tired and it doesn't work nearly as well. So that's the reason why I primarily play this in the career, in the scientific mode, is because I want to be able to enjoy playing. And I can't enjoy playing if I'm constantly worried about, well, okay, look, I can't build this because I don't have the money for it. I can't do this because, this requires this. I have to do these contracts, to satisfy people. And space exploration, at least for me anyway, should be about the joys of space exploration, not... That is a lot of power. An unnecessarily large amount of power. Words that you will never hear me say again, trust me. So we'll do that. No, we won't. Yeah, it's about the science. Alright? Which is why I plan to start up a company. And I was thinking about a name, like something like, I don't know, just like Aperture or something like that. Like Aperture Science. I mean, that sounds like a cool name. Don't you think? That is a Portal reference, by the way. I do know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I love Portal because I love, especially Portal 1. Because at the end, when you get the little song at the end of Portal 1, one of the lines in the song is, Aperture Science, we do what we must because we can. That, for me, sums up what science should really be about. Right? Doing stuff because you can do it, not because you have to. And I know that sounds a little bit kind of like cold and cruel, and you're like, oh no, you're willing to destroy the planet just to achieve a goal. And no, not really. I mean, some sacrifices will naturally need to be made, but it's more about having the ability to... It's about empowering people to be able to do more than just sit at home and veg out. I know I don't get out much, but I still do stuff. So, alright, so let's launch this thing. This is going to go terrible because I've already launched something similar to this before, and it went catastrophically wrong. So I know this is going to go terribly wrong. I know that. But I'm going to do it anyway. Why? Because you guys want to see stuff blow up. Why? Why am I going to launch this thing? Because Michael Bay films still sell. That's why I'm going to launch this thing. Oh, sweet! My flight engineer is actually working again. That was another thing too, was my flight engineer wasn't working, so... Come on, push. Push. Dang it. See, this is what happens every time. I don't know if I have the gimbling engine or not. Come on. Come on. Dang it. See, the problem is it pendulums way too much, and then it starts to flip. And of course, you really don't want the engine firing downward. So actually, ooh, you know what? That's a good idea. Thank you for that. Revert to launch. So what we'll do then instead is turn the SAS on. But we won't throttle all the way up. Because this thing will have About 300 meters per second on it already. I'm not a big fan of the camera swabble, camera wiggle either. It is, I mean, it's not really disorientating, but it is a bit problematic. And I think I know what the problem is. It's when those things launch off. They are... I need you to point at... There you go, computer. That also might be another thing, too. There we go. Ah, the fins. I thought I was forgetting something. I knew I was forgetting something. I forgot the fins. So yeah, I said it should be, science should be more about, you know, exploration and understanding and uncovering rather than money. And that's why I've actually really become like kind of disenchanted with a lot of the scientists these days, because so much of what they do is about money, you know. That's gonna cause a problem, and that's why I don't really use the 3-wing design. It's because the 3-wing design does cause a problem. So we go with 4 because where it might still cause a problem, it hopefully won't be too big of a problem. Okay, so this one should make it. It's like I thought something looked weird about this thing before I launched it, but you know, hey. So this will most likely be the first and last time that I do any in-game commentary. I'll probably switch back to post-commentary after this video, just so that way I'm not trying to talk while launching this thing. Although post-commentary does have its problems. Most notably, if I go quiet for a few seconds, or minutes, as I tend to do, if I do it in-game, it's not nearly as bad. Come on, turn. It's not nearly as bad as it would be if I was trying to do it in post-commentary. Wow, this thing really just does not want to turn. So here's what we'll do. Get this thing up to about... This is terrible. Like, do not ever do this, okay? So there's 70. So I can spin it, but I can't... There she goes. Alright, finally. Okay, because obviously I'm going to end up wasting enormous amounts of fuel now just trying to get this thing to move this way. But we need to continue to point upwards a bit. So, burn! That is not the gimbling engine, is it? Yeah. Dang. So, material bay. 22. Awesome. Open that up, because we should be high enough now to where it won't kill us. Okay, so we already got that. So, close that then. Great. So, this is terrible, because I now have almost no fuel, my arc is ridiculous, and I still don't have an orbit. That's because I couldn't get this thing to turn, because that's not the gimbling engine. And I think it's 100,000 that I need to be at in order to get the far out stuff. Ooh, that'll work. Keep that. I think once you hit like 100,000, you are considered to be in a new biome. Yeah, keep it. Surface. Silver water. Okay. Yeah, it's bad, but it's not as bad as it could have been. So, the main reason I wanted this working is because... no, 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 I don't get any of my Delta V information. Dang. And I know there's a way to calculate it, but I'm too stupid to be able to do that. Physics. Yay. Yeah, like I was saying about my theories and stuff like that, I actually don't believe that gravity is gravity. For those of you curious. I believe that it is the Earth's magnetic pull on us that is affecting us in a much more profound way than what we actually realize, and we call it gravity because, well, it's a simple explanation and we don't have to do any more work in order to go off that. So basically what I'm saying is, yes, Isaac Newton was wrong. But I have some... Yeah, keep that one too. I mean, hey, it's 10 science, but 10 science is 10 science, no matter how you slice it. Yeah, we don't really know as people enough about magnets, magnetism, the magnetic field, and all that stuff to truly classify anything. So I've worked out some of the experiments that need to be done and some of the calculations that I need, but do not ask me for formulas because I am not good at algebra. Like most people, I am terrible at algebra. I'm alright with basic math, although I'm not as alright as I should be. But, well, c'est la vie. Let's see how far I can get now. Fortunately, my reaction control wheels are powerful enough to move this thing. So let's expand that out about as far as it'll go. It won't make it all the way because I'm going to end up running out of fuel, but that's fine. See? So, there's that. So what we'll do then is we will jettison rotate. Woohoo! I love these smaller ships, man. They just flip around so easily. So, but yeah, I said basically my theory revolves around this big blue planet here. This big blue planet here being such a strong magnet that okay, so like the best way I can explain this is most people would argue that a block of metal is attracted to a magnet, whereas a block of wood would not be attracted to a magnet. So therefore, the block of wood is not affected by a magnetic field. This is wrong. The truth is there's not enough particles, there's not enough, the density of the block of wood is too low for it to be affected by a weak magnetic field. You would need a really, really strong magnetic field in order to affect something of a much lower density like a block of wood. And of course, it would have to be all condensed within the same size. So if you have a 1 by 1 by 1 cube of iron and a 1 by 1 by 1 cube of wood, they're both the same size, but the block of iron has a higher density than the block of wood. And it also has a higher density than other stuff, like other metals that are non-magnetizable, like aluminum. So a weaker magnetic field, a weaker magnet can easily manipulate the block of iron because of the sheer density of the block of iron, because of the number of molecules and atoms that are going into making the block of iron. Hang on, surface, where are we at? Still over water, come on, give me something new. I've got one more goo container, it's over here. So in order to affect something like the block of wood, you would need a much stronger magnetic field. Much stronger than pretty much any of us could, any human has been able to replicate. Shores, yes. Still science, whatever. Well, currently replicate. That's what the tests are working to determine. At first, I need the formulas and stuff like that. But the way it works is actually quite simple. The more density, the more dense an object is, the weaker magnetic field, the less... You don't need as strong of a magnetic field to affect a much denser object. Right? So they're proportional. The density reduces the need for strength of a magnetic field. And I know I'm not explaining this right. I mean, it works out so much better in my head than it does when I try and explain it. And this is why I haven't written a paper on this stuff, is because I can't figure out the right words to use for any of this. So, so let's see how well this heat shield works. Now you see, the thing is, so yeah, it's trying to stay, okay, look, I just want you to stay stable. Forget. Ooh, she's not liking that. So, basically, that's a rough summarization of the theory, is that if we were to use a strong enough magnet, we could, in effect, move objects that we would consider non-magnetizable, because they are in a way magnetizable, but they're not magnetizable in the way that we would think of, like magnetizing a piece of metal or something like that. They are affected by the magnetic field. Now, there is some basis behind the theory, which it really kind of started. I mean, I can't really give you like a accurate time frame of when this idea first started in my head, but for the most part, it revolves around the similarities between certain things. So gravity only affects large objects, and so much in the universe is linked together that having gravity affect only super large objects but nothing else is kind of strange. So where we have ways of explaining how small objects interact and how large objects interact, we don't have a bridge between them. So I started wondering why we don't have a bridge between them and what the basic problem was. And the basic problem turned out to be gravity itself. So I started looking at the black holes and asking myself why a black hole, something that is so minuscule and microscopically small, could have such a strong gravitational pull. Because of course gravity can't explain a black hole. properly. It can explain the effects of it, but it can't explain the black hole itself. But what if it's not gravity that's affecting things? What if the black hole itself is generating such a massive magnetic field, such a strong magnetic field, which, given its density, it would, because it is incredibly dense. I mean, you've basically taken a star and condensed it down to the size of a pinhead. So the density of this thing is just astronomical. So it's like, if that's the case, then this thing would be generating a massive magnetic field. And there is some basis behind this. Anywhere that you find a gravitational pull, any object that has a gravitational pull also has a magnetic field. Anything, everything. We learn as children that electricity generates a magnetic field, right? And there is electricity flowing through us. There is energy inside of us, and we generate magnetic fields. And if you think I'm wrong, well, find someone who has a hard time, like myself, standing next to a television antenna. If I stand too close to a TV antenna, I can disrupt the signal from the TV antenna. Why? Well, because apparently the signal is vibrating at the same frequency that my body is putting out. So I'm not going to go into the full theorem for you guys, because I mean, it can be a bit boring, and you guys are probably not interested in that. You guys are interested in KSP. So as you see, 56 science. So we now run into the question of what do we get next? And I'm going to tell you where most of this stuff is sort of beneficial, especially this, which is incredibly tempting because, of course, it gives me the thermostat and the probe body, which would allow me to do a lot more science. I am heavily leaning towards this, but I'm not going to make that decision right now. Primarily, I'm leaning towards this because it gives me the bigger fuel tank, which would allow me to get better rockets. But what I am actually interested in is, where is HUD? So we need 90 science for that, and then another 90 science for that. 180 science. And yes, I know both those said 45, but 45 plus 45 is 90. Plus 90, that's 180. Yeah. So we need 180 science. So we might end up going ahead and getting this, just so I can unlock these two, so I can get the fuel line, so I can start doing asparagus staging and actually get stuff properly into space. So, but that'll be for next time, guys. So just remember, KSP is not dead. It's just been in cryostasis for a while. So I'm done for the day, guys, and with that, I'm going to say sayonara.